Welcome into the Warchant Report. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, Director of Digital Media for Warchant.com. Jeff Cameron, your usual host, will be back, just temporary, but we're fine. We've got a lot of savvy veterans supporting me here. They'll pick me up. Ira Schoffel, Managing Editor of Warchant.com. Been on the beat since 2002. And then Gene Williams, our founder and administrator of Warchant.com. Been doing it since about 1996. All right, we've had Labor Day games before, gentlemen. We're going to have another one this season. Starts things off with Willie Taggart's era. Virginia Tech coming to town to 20th ranked Hokies, taking on number 19th ranked Florida State. It is Labor Day night, 8 p.m. kickoff on ABC. New era, obviously, Willie Taggart. A couple new things they're working on, too, is this Legacy Walk, which will start at 5:30 p.m. Gates open at 6 o'clock. And if that's not enough for you, you got Sod Talk going on at 6:30. That will be Marvin Jones introducing Peter Warwick. That'll be going on from 6 to 6:30. You can actually meet Marvin Jones and Peter Warwick at the Sod Cemetery, which is next to the practice fields. And then Sod Talk begins at 6:30. With that said, there's a game. People want to know about it. So right now, Willie Taggart, obviously going to his first game as head football coach at Florida State, comes to Tallahassee from Eugene, Oregon. And before that, obviously at Tampa at USF, and started off at his alma mater at Western Kentucky. This is a job unlike any of those that we just went over. So, Gene, we'll ask you, have you seen any jitters or anything from Willie in the first 8 or so months he's been on the job? How you sort of assess how he's taken to his new job here at Florida State?
Well, if I was evaluating him as a teacher and I had a lot of check boxes, I would definitely be doing check, 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 check. I mean, pretty much everything you do. One of the big ones is just embracing the tradition of Florida State, going in instantly, forming that relationship with Bobby Bowden, bringing Mickey Andrews in, much beloved Mickey Andrews, maybe not by some of his former players, but to be a consultant, I think that's fantastic. I mean, doing silly things like teaching, making the players know the words of the fight song, those kind of things. It's really neat what he's done in terms of that. And then, of course, the recruiting. I think we forgot about what he did, the amazing job when he first came in, and that class was decimated by the former head coach. Got that thing from number 70 all the way up to number 10 in Rivals rankings. That's unbelievable what he did there. I mean, the players, we've all talked to the players. He's won those guys over. He's obviously won the fans over. There's no doubt about that, the way he handled the tour. The spring game, high-fiving with the fans, all those kind of things. So everything across the board looks fantastic. You got to go out and win games. It's all going to be completely forgotten if he goes out and loses Monday. But I'm telling you, man, he could not have done better. I give him an A+, and then probably some bonus points, maybe an A++.
All right, Ira, you're the journalistic leader of us right here on the desk right now. Access has always been a thing that was sort of a bugaboo for you guys on the beat with Jimbo Fisher. Willie Taggart has, it literally feels like changed that overnight with the amount of access we've got to the assistant coaches. Only one full-time assistant returned to the staff. That is Tuan Odell Higgins. What is your feelings about the new staff that he brought in? A lot of new names that we might not be familiar with down here in the South, some guys that he's friends with, but people outside of his bubble. How do you think he went about bringing the staff together, and what are your thoughts on them so far?
Yeah, I think it's a good mix. He did bring in some guys that he's had long-standing relationships with that he really can trust. Dante Pimpleton, Alonzo Hampton, the special teams coach. These are guys, Telly Lockett, these are all guys that have been with him for a long time. David Kelly has been with him his last two stops, not on the field, but he put him on the field as a receivers coach. Those are the guys that are they know what to expect from Willie Taggart. They know what he wants. They know how he wants drills done. So the other coaches kind of go to them and ask them, hey, what's Willie going to like in this situation? But then he's got some of the new blood. Walt Bell is the offensive coordinator. Greg Fry, who has FSU ties, obviously playing here, but has been coaching at Michigan. It's just a good mix of some new voices for him and some familiar voices for him, guys he trusts. And I think the one thing that I liked about seeing these coaches on the field is they're all very much teachers. You know, they'll yell, they'll turn up the volume when they need to, but it's not that constant yelling, which you kind of see with some coaching staffs. I'm not going to name names, just some coaching staffs. And I think Willie Taggart has that ability as well. He does a lot of teaching, but he'll crank it up when he needs to. And really, that's across the board on this coaching staff. A lot of teaching going on, especially with the younger players, but when they need to ramp it up, they do.
We'll obviously see it on the field come Monday night, but do you feel that you have a better feel for the team because you've been able to speak to so many players, you've been able to speak to so many assistant coaches?
You hope so. I think the biggest thing is, and the reason we complain about access sometimes is we want to know what we're talking about, but we also want to be able to tell the fans, share the stories of these players and these coaches with the fans. Let them have an idea of who they're cheering for on Saturdays. I think that was missing a little bit, certainly the last few years, where the access got tighter and tighter. We couldn't share these guys' stories. And then the fan base, when the team wasn't doing well, they didn't really know who they were supporting because they didn't relate to these players. So I think that's going to help him in the long run as well. Like Gene said, you got to win. But I think it just helps for the players, the fans, and the boosters and supporters to really understand who this team is.
Yeah. All right, Gene, it's a Labor Day night. There's no other competition going on the television, it seems like, against this game. This is his sort of debut. I mean, on a national stage. I mean, he's obviously been playing on ESPN, ESPN2, but when you're the only game going on that night, the entire nation is going to kind of see what Florida State is about. I mean, how much more added importance is this opener for him with the fact that he's got a ranked team coming in, a team that's conference opponent, and then obviously primetime only sole exclusive game on television that night?
Yeah, it's probably bigger than just a regular opener or a regular conference game. I think just because everybody wants to get off that first good impression. You walk into, the fans are going to be there, like I said, national television audience, maybe a sold-out game in Doak Campbell. So I think from that perspective, also there's a momentum thing when you got a new staff and the excitement with the players. Because let's look at your next 4 games after that: Samford, Syracuse, Northern Illinois, and then Louisville without Lamar Jackson. I'm going to be saying that a lot as we lead up to that game. So there's a pretty good shot you win that game. You're 5-0 going to that Miami game. Obviously, that's Miami. If they beat LSU this weekend, then you've potentially got a really top 15, top 10 matchup, even depending how things shake out. So a lot of momentum there. That helps recruiting. You're going to have kids in, and they're starting to buy more and more into Willie Taggart. It's going to help ticket sales because I think a lot of people are kind of waiting in the wings to see is this team really a lot better than that team that went 7-6 last year. It's going to help there. And let's face it, wins this year are going to be really tough to come by. They've got one of the toughest schedules. I looked it up. I think Athlon, their preseason magazine at FSU, is the toughest schedule in the country. ESPN's Power Index had it number 2. That schedule gets really tough when you get into late October, November. So if you can get an early win here against a ranked team, that could really pay dividends down the road.
There's a lot of optimism, enthusiasm, Ira, from a lot of fans, but they're rational. They know what Gene said. They know it's a very tough schedule. But I find it hard to believe that come Monday night at 8:20, if they haven't gotten across midfield, there's going to be a lot of people getting upset. But how much can folks judge or, kind of hold the feet to the fire for Willie in a game of this magnitude, at home, Labor Day, conference opponent, game number 1? I mean, people are tempering their enthusiasm right now, but when the game starts, I feel like everyone's going to want to see instant results. What should they be able to expect? What's fair?
Yeah, I think Gene's point is right. For a lot of reasons, people want to see a good start because they know that schedule is so back heavy, so backloaded on the second half of the season. You got to get these wins where you can, and certainly against a top 20 team. But I also think it's hard to judge based on the first game, especially with a new coaching staff. Again, we were talking earlier this week. You look at Jimbo Fisher's first season when they went out to Oklahoma. He was so confident going into that game, and they just got blasted. It was not even a contest. But that didn't mean the season was a disaster, and that didn't mean that Jimbo couldn't coach. It just meant that they had misevaluated some things based on what they saw in practice. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see what this coaching staff has seen in practice, what translates to games and what doesn't translate to games. And they'll figure out based on that first game and then those next couple of games who they can really trust, who they can't trust, what changes they have to make. And I think you'll see them play much better as the year goes on. But yeah, you'd love to have that game just because the schedule is so difficult in the second half.
There's going to be growing pains. Again, there's only one full-time assistant returning from last year, but it's branded as lethal simplicity. So, I mean, with the new staff, how much growth can one expect overnight, I guess?
Well, again, I think it comes down to the players and evaluating so many new players. If you look at that depth chart, they've got a lot of oars with freshmen listed on that depth chart. And there's a lot of guys on there that haven't played much college football or any college football. And so, the coaching staff can have a theory about who's going to perform well, who's going to shine in that moment, and but some of those guys will not. Some of those guys will fail, and they have to see it in a game situation. So I think it'll be a feeling out process. So this is why in the old days, football teams started off with much easier opponents to kind of get your feet wet. But now with so much money and conference pressure and TV pressure, you have to play teams like Virginia Tech in the opener, and that can be tough in your first season.
Isn't it also some of the communication issues? You've got all these new coaches working together. You got Walt Bell working with Willie Taggart first time. I think they're going to have that little feeling out process of what's going to work well in these situations. So I think not only evaluating the players, I think the coaches evaluating each other and figure out how they're going to mesh together. And it could take 2, 3, 4, 5 games before they really get in a rhythm there too.
All right, well, there's some apprehension possibly about a new staff taking over, but Virginia Tech not going to this game awfully confident, at least if you talk to their folks in the media. We'll discuss the Hokies and what they bring to the table right after this here on the Warchant Report.
Hey, this is John in Greenville, South Carolina.
This is Eric from New Haven, Connecticut. My name's Jared. I'm from Mobile, Alabama.
Justin from Oklahoma.
This is Ranye from Marshall, Georgia.
This is Terrell calling from Texas.
This is Josh from St. Louis, Missouri.
This is Roderick from North Carolina.
Wake up, Corey. Wake up, Aslan. It's Gibby.
Still coming to you guys from East Village in Manhattan, New York City.
This is Kevin. I'm up here in Radford, Virginia.
It's Chris from beautiful sunny Phoenix. Sam Wright all the way from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Hey, this is Josh from South Dakota.
Just wanted to call and say love the show.
First of all, I want to start off by saying I love you guys' show. I really appreciate the show.
Great show, guys. Really enjoy it.
I love the podcast. Big fan of the show. Keep up the good work, guys.
Keep up the good work. Love the show.
Hello guys, my name is Derek. I am currently stationed in Okinawa, Japan, active duty Marine Corps. I love the show.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up, Warchant!
Welcome back to the Warchant Report. I'm Aslan. He's Gene Williams, founder and administrator of Warchant.com. This is Ira Schoffel, our managing editor. And Ira, man, you're the journalistic sort of compass here, and I buried the lead. We didn't even get to talk about that. We got the black helmet on the set here because of the blackouts happening. Well, actually, it's technically not a blackout, Gene, right? They're just going to wear black uniforms. First game.
You're welcome to wear black. If you
Yeah.
want to represent, you can.
Yeah, I mean, first game of Willie's sort of tenure here at Florida State. What are your thoughts on going non-traditional and mixing it up with the black unis?
I'm not thrilled about it. I would have liked the first one to be tradition, but as Willie explained it in the press conference, which you can watch on Warchant.com. The players want to do it. It's a big deal to them, so fine. I'm not that upset. I'm not this uniform guy that I'm one way or the other, but I would have liked the first one to roll out the tradition. If you're going to do that, then go old school. He's embraced Florida State. I think you guys brought it up on the podcast, but why don't you bring out the old Florida State uniforms and then bring Bowden's coming out, Peter Warrick's coming out, Marvin Jones. It seemed like it'd be a cool way to honor them, but heck, I'll live with the black. You're fine with it, right, Ira? You're not going to lose sleep?
Were you saying the old logo? Were you telling me?
No, don't go there, Ira. No.
The more reddish garnet, the more reddish,
the old
less purple.
Uniforms. I'm not going to mess with them. I'm not even going to touch the logo.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm not a huge uniform guy. Honestly, there are a lot of games after the fact you could say, hey, what were they wearing? And I wouldn't even remember. Right. I'm just not the uniform guy. But I do like the fact that he's giving the players some ownership, and everybody can relax a little bit. Willie did say, it's not going to be crazy. It's not going to be quite like Oregon. I know that that's what everybody's going to think when they see Florida State coming out in all black in the first game. But as he said, there's only so many combinations. They're not going to introduce a whole bunch of new colors. But I do think, the players are excited, and I think the whole theme of this regime has been giving the team a little bit back to the players, giving them some ownership. There's a unity council. He's trying to give them some say-so and investment in the program, and we'll see if it translates on the field.
Ira, by the way, playing hurt for all of us right now, battling a cold, man. Thanks for bearing it out. Appreciate it. All right, let's look ahead now to Virginia Tech. Willie Taggart had his weekly press conference on Wednesday and, of course, was asked his thoughts on Virginia Tech and what they bring to the table and had this to share with the assembled media.
They're fundamentally and technically sound, and I think that's a huge part of playing a really good defense, and they're rarely out of position. Those guys are always in position to make plays, and I think he has a good understanding of how he wants to call a game, and they move their front, the defensive line at times. They'll stem them before the snap, and then they'll move them after the snap, which can cause you problems up front if you're not prepared for it. So,
Coach, just Josh Jackson, his versatility for Virginia Tech. I mean, what's the biggest challenge trying to slow him down?
Well, you've got to be able to tackle him. He's a big kid and a big athlete at the quarterback position, and they do a good job of using him in the run game, and so we got to make sure we do a good job of game tackling and getting on him, and he throws the ball well for him, and I know Coach Justin done a great job with quarterbacks in the past and find ways to put them in the best position to make plays, and you can see him from last year. He was getting better. He's a young kid playing in there last year, and you can expect for him to be a lot better going in year two.
All right, a fundamental defense we know they're going to have, Virginia Tech. But offensively, Josh Jackson, that's I guess their bell cow, that's their linchpin. He's their quarterback. Did quite well as a freshman. What should Florida State expect to see out of him? Is he more of a thrower? Is he more of a passer? Or is he a true dual threat?
I think he's pretty much a true dual threat. He can throw it. He threw for almost 3,000 yards as a freshman last year. He also threw for, I think, 20 touchdowns. Had some big games. Had some 3, 4, 5 touchdown games. But he also can run it. He ran for over 300 yards. Had 6 rushing touchdowns. So he's a guy that can do all of those things. And I think if you look at what Florida State's doing defensively under Harlan Barnett, it might give a little bit of pause because Harlan Barnett has talked about kind of bringing back that old school Florida State defense where you attack, and the defensive linemen get upfield, and it's not about containing and setting edges. It's about getting upfield and putting pressure on the quarterback and playing the run, which is great. But when you get a mobile quarterback and you start stringing plays out, sometimes that can be difficult for defenses. We saw, for years the tight ends being uncovered or
Throwbacks, right?
yeah, different things, misdirection, things like that you're susceptible to. So I'm curious to see how Harlan Barnett coaches against this scheme and against that quarterback. I do think that the key or the number one philosophy that they're going to really follow is getting 11 hats to the ball and punish him. If you talk to Mickey Andrews about their approach against Michael Vick back in the day in that championship game, it was we knew he was going to run a lot, we knew he was going to make a lot of plays, but we had to punish him every time we got to him. And as the game went on, you saw Michael Vick wear down. Josh Jackson's a lot bigger dude, but I think that's going to be the approach.
Right. Harlan Barnett also has said that they want to stop the run. Virginia Tech, maybe not the most potent run attack in the nation. But who do they bring back on offense? I mean, we know Josh Jackson, but are there any other names that Florida State fans need to keep an eye on when Virginia Tech's out there on offense, Gene?
Well, you mentioned most of the rushers are back, and that includes leading rusher Deshaun McLeese, if I pronounced that correctly. And so he's a guy, he ran for almost 5 yards a carry last year, so he's definitely, and they lost, I think, the second leading rusher, so I think he's going to be the bell cow, the guy that's going to get most of the carries. He's the guy they're going to have to key on, obviously, to slow down. But an interesting stat on Virginia Tech running the football. Even though he ran pretty well last year, and you mentioned their overall rushing stats, and they are definitely dedicated to the run, but for the last 5 years, they've failed to average at least 4 yards a carry. They've been under 4 yards a carry, and that's not real good, especially if you're an upper echelon team. You need to do better than that, so I can guarantee they're going to really be dedicated to that. They lost their top receiver in Cam Phillips last year, but they bring back Sean Savoy. He's one of these speedy guys, 5'9", 170 pounds or whatever, but I mean, he's a guy who's going to try to stretch the field, but he's the guy I want to see this matchup with Levonta Taylor. I think this is a good matchup for him. I'm not necessarily want to see Levonta Taylor against the 6'4", 6'5" guy. Put him against another 5'9" guy. I think that's a great matchup for Florida State.
Defensively, though, you mentioned some of the things about Harlan Barnett, some of the keys of 11 guys running to the ball, which is that's an absolutely novel concept, right? Instead of just, do your job. I mean, what else do you kind of want to see from Florida State, or what do you expect some maybe the strengths to be, Ira? Because this depth chart that we talked about, we were hoping to maybe see Marvin Wilson as a projected starter on the interior, but he's going to be backing up Frederick Jones. What do you expect to see from Harlan Barnett's defense, besides just 11 guys kind of running, in terms of maybe the talent that's going to be out there?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of rotations, especially because it's the first game of the season. As you mentioned, Marvin Wilson isn't on the first team depth chart. I think he'll work in quickly, and I think there's a chance he may end up playing more reps than Fred Jones if he can do it. He's missed some time in camp because of coming back from that knee injury. But you look at that linebacker core, I wouldn't read too much into who's starting. And in one of the positions at least, they didn't tell us who was starting. But I think that's going to be, they've rotated those guys all preseason. DeKalen Brooks and Adonis Thomas and just across the Leonard Warner, all those guys. The only one that I think is a sure thing starting is Jaden Woodby, the freshman, and Dontavius Jackson, if he's healthy, at middle linebacker. But those other guys, I think they're all going to get a lot of reps. And I think they're going to see who makes the most plays and who deserves to be out there. And also in the secondary, there's a lot of guys that they're going to want to see how they do. I think this game, even though you're not going to want to take a lot of chances in this game, I think they're going to want to see what some of these young guys can do in this game. And you're going to see a heavy rotation, I think, of players across the board.
What about you, Gene? You excited to see the secondary out there perform? Do you want to see if Brian Burns can just be an absolute nightmare matchup for any tackle out there in the ACC? What are you looking forward to?
I think Ira kind of went across the board mentioning everything that I think is going to be unique about this game. But I think just in general, I'm looking forward to seeing how different things are going to look for us defensively from Florida State compared to last year. I mean, you read up some of the write-ups, and they call what Barnett does a 9-man front, because he gets the safeties are creeping up a little bit closer. The corners are always going to be up on the line. You're not going to see them on 3rd and 8 drop back 10 yards. They're going to be very aggressive, so I think it's going to be a little bit of adjustment. Like, wow, and I think they're going to come heavy at the quarterback, but as Ira brought up, you got to be a little bit careful with this guy. You don't want to lose contain, because he will take off and run and make some big plays. But I'm just looking forward to the more aggressive approach, having more guys in the box and really dedicated to stopping the run.
Virginia Tech, meanwhile, on their side of the ball when it comes to defense, they're pretty excited about who they have on the interior of their defensive line. They've got Ricky Walker, who's their pail keeper. He was the guy that was walking around Charlotte, that beat-up old lunch pail. That thing is legit, and that's seen some things. And then also Jared Hewitt, who I think is actually a Florida kid. He's from Venice, so he'll obviously probably be up and amped up for that game. But other than those two guys, there's a lot of unknowns, it seems like, for Bud Foster and the defense for the Hokies, right, Gene?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable the offseason. I mean, poor Bud Foster has to be just every day. It seemed like they were losing another guy. All in all, they lost 11 defenders in the offseason. And these are not just a bunch of scrub walk-ons. These are guys who are either slated to start or were going to be a key backup. So a huge deficit. As far as my math goes, I see only one guy, and that's junior Reggie Floyd, that returns from that entire back seven. He's the only guy with any real experience, started 12 games last season. So that's going to be a big problem, I think, for them, especially if Willie Taggart and Walt Bell can kind of get a little bit of rhythm going in this game, and you can put the up-tempo works, and you start putting pressure on those linebackers, those defensive backs that have to, in the open field, tackle a DJ Matthews, tackle a Cam Akers, get one-on-one isolated with Trey McKitty, those kind of guys. That could be a really challenging matchup for guys getting their first real action in a college football game on national TV.
Ira, we keep talking about how great this running back core is for Florida State, but offensively, out wide on the perimeter, I mean, what do you think Walt Bell and Willie Taggart should do to best give Florida State a chance to beat Virginia Tech?
Well, there's a lot of talent there. It's just unproven at wide receiver. And, I think overall it may be the most talented receiver core we've seen in years for Florida State when you go top to bottom. I think it's going to depend on what Virginia Tech does defensively. If Virginia Tech is aggressive, Bud Foster traditionally has been an aggressive defensive coordinator. If they're playing very tight up front, if they want to put confidence in their young defense and play aggressively, then I think Florida State's going to have to take shots downfield. DeAndre is going to have to make some big throws. That's why he's part of the reason he's got the starting job. He's got that big arm that can make those throws. If Virginia, and then ideally Virginia Tech, if they start dropping back, then you can hit them underneath. Conversely, if Bud Foster is a little more conservative and doesn't want to keep his corners on an island and doesn't drops his safeties back, then it's up to DJ Matthews and to do things underneath. Some of those other slot receivers, Keyshawn Helton, some of those slot receivers, Naquan Murray, to do damage underneath and bring the safeties down. So I think it's really going to be a cat and mouse game, and a lot of it's going to depend on what Virginia Tech tries to do defensively. I think Florida State feels they can attack however Virginia Tech plays, but we'll have to see what Virginia Tech does.
Right. What about this hurry up, no huddle offense, Gene? How much of the turbo, which we didn't get to see a lot of it in practice, and admittedly, Willie told us that, we didn't get to see a lot of 11-on-11 at practice, so we're not going to see the full sort of breadth of their offense. But how much of that tempo, the turbo that he likes to run, do you think we'll see on Labor Day night?
I think you're probably seeing it about third gear. I just have a feeling this first game, I think the coaching staff's going to put an emphasis on getting it right over getting it fast, just because these guys are learning a completely new system. This is the first game. Now, to throw back a stat to Oregon last year, they weren't real good in the penalty department. They were 129 out of 130 teams in committing penalties at 9.1 per game. And a lot of that is a function of the fact that you are breaking in a new system and guys are learning it, not getting lined up right. They're jumping off sides. They're doing various things because of that. So I would think you would have that in mind, maybe slow things down just a little bit to try to mitigate some of those. But I think this first night we're going to see a few mistakes. Guys are occasionally not going to get lined up right. It's going to be a penalty here or there. But you hope it's minor things and irritation rather than being critical mistakes that could cost you the game.
A lot of turbo, little turbo. What do you expect in Ira?
I think it depends on how well it works. And I think that's the thing about that system. From hearing talk at practices and scrimmages, when it gets going, it can really get going. And that's when the defense is really on their heels. But if you have some hiccups here or there, then you kind of have to back off it a little bit, maybe go back to the running game. And, this is an offense where you can revert a little bit to a power running game if you need to. So I think it's going to depend on how well it works. I think Gene's point is good, especially early in the season. How well do these guys do it when the lights are on? Because they've gotten a lot better at practice, but probably not to where it needs to be.
So a trick play? I mean, Walt Bell is influenced. You think there's going to be at least one. You think all this offseason, right?
I would think there'll be at least one trick play.
I think Walt Bell, he loves that kind of stuff. He's got to pull something out of his hat we haven't seen. I don't think the wild camp's too obvious. I think he's going to do something crazy we just don't see coming.
All right, well, that's one prediction. Don't make your game predictions. We'll do that right after this when we come back on the Warchant Report.
It's football season in Tallahassee, and the only place to go for FSU apparel and merchandise is Garnet and Gold. Locally owned and operated by Seminoles for Seminoles for nearly 40 years. Garnet and Gold has the best selection of FSU merchandise in town, but what we really sell is tradition and passion to serve you, the true Seminole fans, at all three of our locations, West Pensacola Street, Killarn, and our flagship store across from Regal Cinema. Online at garnetandgold.com. Shop local and go Noles.
Welcome back to the Warchant Report. I'm Aslan. He's Gene Williams, founder and administrator of Warchant.com. This is Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of Warchant.com. Again, Florida State taking on number 20 Virginia Tech in Doak Campbell Stadium, Labor Day night, 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. But before that, if you want to hang out with these guys, Corey Clark's going to be there too. Michael Langston, your favorites from Warchant.com. They'll all be over at Garnet and Gold on West Pensacola Street at about 4:30 p.m. We're pretty sharp around here. The trains run on time. First 50 subscribers who show up will get a free Warchant tumbler. It's stainless steel. It's nice. Yeah. I have one, but only the special people in my life get to use it. I don't bring it out for any small occasion. But after that, the real showstoppers, 5 p.m., there'll be a signing of autographs from Bobby Bowden as well as Charlie Ward. So, there's a 2-for-1 for you. Hang out with these guys. No, not this time around. Not this time around. So get on out there for the meet and greet. We'll be out there. Hope to see as many of you as possible. Again, the first 50, though, subscribers get the free tumblers. All right, so the quarterback, we've known about the starter now for almost a week or so. DeAndre Francois is going to get the nod for the Noles. He was the ACC Newcomer of the Year in 2016. Went down with that knee injury, obviously, against Alabama. It's going to be his 15th career start, if I'm not mistaken. So why was there a controversy, I guess? Was there a controversy? How much of a surprise was this to you, Ira, that Francois was named the starting quarterback?
I don't think it was much of a surprise once we knew he was clear physically. And the fact that he got through the entire offseason without any other hiccups after his little incident, I guess, early in the spring. So I think the fact that he moved back on campus, started ingratiating himself to his teammates and coaches, I think those were all positive signs. Then when he was cleared physically, then it came down to who's the best quarterback. And all that kind of goes out the window. And I think if you looked at, James Blackman, Bailey Hockman, DeAndre Francois, and you watch them practice every day, like the portions of practice we saw, I think DeAndre is the best quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean he's like head and shoulders where he's impervious and if he has a bad game, he couldn't be benched. I don't think it's that situation at all. I think it was a decent competition, but I think he gives them the best chance to win. And the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over, Willie's made that comment several times. He didn't turn the ball over much in preseason. And if you go back to his 1 year as a starter, he didn't turn the ball over very much. Now, he did the last time we saw him against Alabama. But that was, you got to grade that
Alabama.
one. You got to grade that one on the curve a little bit. So I think they made the right choice. And but I also would say James Blackman, Bailey Hockman have to be ready because there's no guarantee that DeAndre's just going to light it up all season.
The offense is lethally simplistic, Gene, but he hasn't taken a live hit, we think, in probably about a year when he steps out there on the field. What do you expect out of DeAndre Francois on Monday night?
I expect, he's a cool customer. That was one thing I think was so good about him in 2016. How many times he get knocked down in a big game and he'd come back, it seemed like he would play even better. There were times when FSU fell behind and he would rally them all the time. So, I think that's one of the reasons why you saw with James Blackman, who probably shouldn't have even been on the field because he was going to redshirt last year, but he was forced out there. You could see a little bit more up and down, maybe didn't handle adversity as well. So I think just having a guy in there who's very calm and be able to get through this very, a little bit easier, a new system, I think guys will feed off of that. So I think he'll bring that to the table. And I think he may run a little bit more than this game we're expecting. I think all the talk about Florida State's running game, they're going to be keyed on Cam Akers. Florida State really hasn't had a running quarterback for a while. So I don't be surprised there's some play calls where he's going to run a little bit more in this game just to keep Bud Foster's defense a little off guard.
Is his running ability a key? Is it one of your 3 keys to victory? What are your 3 keys for victory?
No, that's not one of my 3 keys, but I'm just saying watch for that. I think for him, my 3 keys, let's throw them out there. Number 1, Captain Obvious, limit the mistakes. It's your first game. You're going to do this. Just don't let them be, no pick sixes, that kind of thing. You get some penalties here and there. Just limit that a little bit. I'd say get the running game going. Again, obvious, but I think against this defense, if you can get the running game going and put the pressure on that back 7, it's going to be a long night for Virginia Tech. Then finally, I'd say rattle the quarterback, Jackson, for Virginia Tech. One thing I noticed last year in those big games when he played the Miamis, when he played the Clemsons, they put a little bit of pressure on him. He didn't handle it very well. He really kind of melded in those circumstances. So if you get a big game from Brian Burns, that front 4, I think they could really help Florida State's defense.
All right, Florida State walks out of Doak Campbell victorious. What will be the 3 reasons why, or the 3 keys for victory for the Noles?
I'm going to go with a lot of the soft factors, especially because it's the first game. I just think it's important that with that crowd, that atmosphere is going to be so intense. With Peter Warwick getting his jersey retired, the team wearing their black jerseys, there's going to be the start of the Willie Taggart era. There's going to be so much emotion. Florida State really has to come out strong and kind of put Virginia Tech on their heels. I think Virginia Tech's got a young team, especially a young defense. That's going to be a tough environment on a Monday night. The place is going to be packed. And I think it's going to be important for Florida State to jump on them and just set the tone early. Don't let them hang around. The other thing is if they do have some problems, some mistakes, I really want to see how this team kind of responds and how they respond to adversity, because that team last year, a lot of these same players did not handle adversity very well at all. Think back to the Boston College game, some of the other nightmares. And, it's a new coaching staff, a new philosophy, a new emotion. I think that's the one thing we really need to see out of them. How do they respond to adversity? And then I think, punching it in the red zone, it's another cliched kind of thing, but I just think that you need to get 7 points in this offense. They need to have confidence in this offensive line to run the ball in the red zone, and then that offensive line has to deliver. I don't think you're going to have the season you want to have if you're depending on the quarterback to always make those plays in the red zone. The offensive line and the running game have to get those tough yards, and I think this will be a good test to see if they can do that.
All right. start quick and take it over from there. Before we get to who we think is going to win that game, it's actually a pretty solid week one. This is a really good week one, so I'm kind of happy that Florida State's playing on Monday so we can watch most of these other games. So with that, we'll go with Auburn taking on Washington. That's going to be the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic for this year. It's neutral site, as neutral as it could be for Auburn, who's, 2 hours or so away from Atlanta. They were 1.5-point favorite against the Huskies. Who you got, Ira?
Yeah, I don't think it's much of a neutral site at all. I'm going to go with Auburn, and the large reason is because I think they're going to have such an overwhelming crowd advantage.
All right, they got a huge playoff percentage Washington does for making the college football playoff, but he's going to take Auburn. What about you, Gene?
It's one of those ones I wondered, does Vegas know something? I don't understand this. I mean, the Pac-12 was awful in the postseason, and this is, like you guys pointed out, basically a home game for Auburn. They're traveling across the country to play this one. I don't understand that line. I would think Auburn would be a much bigger favorite, but still I got to go with what's obvious. You got to go with Auburn in this one.
I'll be the contrarian. I'll say Washington. I think Auburn's lost some on the back end of their defense and their secondary, and I know they don't have Kerryon Johnson anymore and Cameron Petway, but they're a plug-and-play offense. But I still think maybe there's got to be some with Washington, right? Everyone said they're going to make the playoffs. So
if you're looking to have some entertainment, you might want to go with this guy because he spent the last couple years in Dothan, so he might have more connections to Auburn than we do.
How about this? First-team All-American quarterback, Associated Press, Will Grier.
Yeah.
Man, he's the first-team All-American quarterback by the Associated Press. Will Grier, formerly from Florida, now with West Virginia, rather. 10-point favorites against Tennessee. That one's going to be in Charlotte. Jeremy Pruitt, he's going to be a peach to talk to after this one, I feel like. But who do you think is going to win that one, Gene?
Yeah, one of the worst coach interviews I've ever been a part of, just dealing with it. Anyway, kind of glad he's gone from that perspective. But that's a lot of points. It's 10 points in this one. I think West Virginia's a little bit better team. I don't know if they're 10 points better in this one. So give me the Vols, and this was much as I hate picking the Volunteers in anything.
What about you, Ira?
I'm with Gene. I'm taking Tennessee. I'm taking the points. There's a lot of points. I'm going to go with the Vols.
That has a lot of points. When those sort of offenses meet really good defenses, it feels like they kind of buckle. How about this one? They called it the Overrated Bowl on the Dan Le Batard show. Michigan at Notre Dame. It's a pick'em. Ira.
Yeah, and I like it's tough. It's a tough game. I'm going to go with Notre Dame though. Probably mostly just because they're at home. I'm going to go with the Irish.
All right. Do I have to make picks? I'd rather not. I don't want to be looked silly.
No, you got to make picks. You go for it.
I'll go with Tennessee as well too on that one. Michigan, Notre Dame. I'm a root for Willie's boy Jim. I got a man crush on Jim Harbaugh. I know it's really weird, but I don't want to talk about it. So I'll pick the Wolverines. What do you think, Gene?
Hate to keep in agreement with Ira on this one, but Notre Dame's at home and a pick 'em. 2 even teams, you go with the home team.
All right. I like Shea Patterson. I don't even know who the quarterback for Notre Dame is going to be, but I know Shea Patterson, who was at Ole Miss, is going to be the quarterback for Michigan. That was the bugaboo for Jim. He didn't have a real good quarterback. He's got it now. We'll see if he can make it happen. Louisville versus Alabama. My goodness, 24.5 points for the Tide. They're favored. This one will be in Orlando. No Lamar. Big problem, I would imagine, right?
Well, Lamar, I don't think the offense is going to be a problem. I mean, everywhere that Bobby Petrino has been, they've scored a lot of points. So I think the offense is going to score points. I'm a little bit more concerned about their defense. But I think this has been a little bit of a unique offseason for Alabama with the chatter about Jalen Hurts not being happy and all that. So I'm going to fade the Tide a little bit. I'm going to take the points with Louisville. They might get beat by 60, but I'm going to take the points if I had to.
What about you, Gene?
Here's where I disagree with you, Ira. I will not ever go against Nick Saban in an opener, even against a huge, what seems like a ridiculous amount of points. But man, these openers, these neutral site openers, for whatever reason, they've been a juggernaut. And I just think he's been through controversies and stuff where we know Tua is going to start there, and he's a generational quarterback. I think like Jameis Winston for them. I think they're going to be just ridiculously good this year.
Yeah, they never had a quarterback. Now they have one. How exciting. Great. This one's actually on Sunday, I think, right?
Did you make your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Gene. Boss knows right. Alabama, they just thrash people in these openers, which we got firsthand.
You could take the boy out of Alabama. But
easy. Easy now. This one's on Sunday, right? Yeah, Miami taking on LSU at AT&T Stadium. That's Jerry's World. Miami, a 3-point favorite against LSU. I'm just going to say this before they make their picks, and you guys can get mad at me. Kind of root for Miami. It's just better that way because listen, Alabama's going to beat Louisville really bad, and if LSU beats Miami really bad, or just wins, it's going to be SEC. See, they're the best. I'm
take
fine
a poll.
with Miami
90% of the listeners will disagree with you on that.
Listen, I'm not encouraged by. I'm not going to be rooting for them full throated, but I'd rather see them.
Not going to bring your turnover chain to watch the game.
Turnover chain. I'm a turnover spear over here. What do you think, though, Gene? 3 points Miami against LSU.
Yeah, I'm definitely not rooting for them, but I think LSU's just a joke. They're a shadow of what they were. I don't think Miami's great. I think they're massively overrated, being in the top 10. I think that's ridiculous. But LSU's probably going to be a 500 team in my opinion in the year. So give me Miami. Probably wins by a touchdown.
Who you got there, Ira? We're going to be taking on the North. We're going to be taking on the Canes.
Yeah, for a while I kind of thought I was going to go with LSU, but the more I think about Coach O, and I'm going to go with Miami. I'm going to lay the points. I think it'll be interesting to watch LSU if Jimbo doesn't love Texas A&M over the next couple of years. He's got that zero buyout. LSU, man, they may not. They haven't given up on hope. Giving up hope that Jimbo may end up.
Third time's gonna be the charm going after him.
So third or fourth time. So but anyway, I don't think Coach O's long for that job. I'll go with the Canes.
I will also say that as well. I heard Orgeron said that their defense is salty, but I think it's probably because his offense is probably horrible. So I think Miami will take that one as well. All right, with that said, let's get to the one that matters the most to everybody watching this one. Virginia Tech, again, number 20 in the nation, coming to Tallahassee, Doak Campbell Stadium, Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. ABC, 8 o'clock, number 19, Florida State. The Noles, a 7-point favorite. Gene, that number, what do you think about that? Florida State going to be able to cover that? You got him?
Yeah, I think they do, as long as they don't make too many mistakes. I just think Virginia Tech's defense is going to be a real tough time, especially if that up-tempo is working at all, even if it's at three-quarter speed and they can cut down on the mistakes. I think they're just going to be able to score a lot of points in this game. What's the stat last year when Virginia Tech gives up more than 24 points? They're 0-4, I think the record has been, or whatever. So they need a low-scoring game to be able to stay in this and have a chance to win this, but I don't see that happening. I think Florida State's got too many weapons. They're going to get too many plays against a young and inexperienced defense. So I got this going 34-24 Noles.
Oh, boom. There we go. We got a total point scored and everything, too. Ira, what about you?
Yeah, I like that pick, but I'm going to go a little bit bolder. I'm going to go 37-20. I think Florida State's going to I think DeAndre Francois is going to play really well, and I think you're going to see Cam Akers, Kalen LeBourne, Jacquez Patrick, those running backs have a big day. I like Florida State to kind of win this one handily.
I never feel good about saying 30 in an opener. Offenses are always sluggish, but it's a Taggart era. It's a new day. Things go fast. Florida State, I think, all right, yeah, I can't. I'm on the Warchant report. I can't say they're not going to cover. I'll go ahead. I'll say 28-13. Florida State wins that one by. So 4 touchdowns. It's pretty good. But I keep thinking, I want to just see this offense roll night one, first game, just tempo, and just make Virginia Tech's life miserable. But I think we might have.
Well, imagine that if they did, let's say they do score 40 or more points. I mean, what's going to be the narrative the next few weeks? I mean, you want to talk about, I think those ticket sales will be churning. That ticket office will be busy on Tuesday.
Oh, man, 40 points would be really nice. All right, we'll see how that all shakes out. Again, Jeff Cameron will be back with you guys next week for the Samford game. Thanks, Jeff, for letting me have this one. He's Ira. That's Gene. Thanks for watching the Warchant Report. We'll see you maybe over at Garnet and Gold on Sunday at 4:30.